Good morning. Welcome to this episode of Community of the Wild Goose. It's Super Bowl Sunday. It seems like Super Bowl's a good distraction. Sports are a good distraction to many things instead of our primary thing to be thinking about and doing. But it is nice. It is nice, But sometimes it's a wonderful metaphor, though, for those of us who idolized sports players, games, teams, look forward to the next game, and then couldn't cope with a loss for the next day or two. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I started thinking about that, with what's happening in my life, in how we're watching and waiting for the team to get into the end zone. We're watching and waiting for the game to end in a win. And then we got to look forward to the next game, barely enjoy the process of the game and what's happening because we get mad at the officials. We don't like this. We don't like that. Get in the end zone. We're happy. Game is over. We win. We're happy. We lose. We're miserable for a day or two. And I think that it spills over so much. It's a metaphor, not spills over. It spills over into the game. But really in life, that's kind of like how we do, we look for the next positive word, next positive message, next happy, fun thing to do. And sometimes life becomes difficult to live. And, I've been wrestling with how much disclosure to do on this venue. But I got to tell you that if I were with my Community of the Wild Goose family, speaking from up front, we usually averaged about 35 to 75 people in between there. But you are our family. And I would never think to withhold information, because the whole point of my journey, my writings, my speaking, my unmasking has been a ambition to live an authentic life. But what I have found is that when life really gets difficult, it's much more difficult to be authentic, because it's always easier to be the healer rather than to be the patient. But I'm learning that we share in these things. So I will be sharing some of what I'm going through. I hope not for self-serving reasons, but that it will affirm your journey, your hard, your difficult, and the joys that we find in the process, the intimacy with spirit that I find and that you might find, and a voice to be able to do that. So the way I'm treating this morning is not a traditional 3-point message or 10-point message or whatever, and there's going to be a body, an introduction, a conclusion. Not that I ever came off with something like that, but it's what I enjoy doing the most, and that's having coffee with my family, with my friends, and having a conversation. Now, this is going to be a little bit more like, I wasn't born quite yet, but Roosevelt's fireside chats, where it wasn't exactly a two-way chat. It was a one-way chat. So I hope that I can speak your heart as I'm speaking my own, and that I can connect with you on this point, understanding that this is for it's good for me too. It's good for me to expose myself, and I do pray that it will not be a testimony and an inspiration. Trust me, there are many who I look up to in that area, but and it is not me, but it is a real life human journey that we share together. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. Somebody was sharing with me their own personal heartache, and it was not long after I had gone back to the doctor, and they did a 30-day exam after chemo, and found a spot there, and the cancer is there again, or still there, or returned. I don't really know exactly, but all I know is it ain't over. And somebody was sharing with me their own personal heartache about something in a relationship, and then stopped and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm putting that on you. You just got cancer results again." And that's when it hit me. Part of sharing in community, part of being able to tell our stories, whether it is a heartache in a relationship, or it is cancer, or it is a COVID story, or it's struggling with a child who's having difficulty in school, or a child struggling with difficulty with a parent. But when we combine our sufferings, our human condition, when we combine those, it's as though the weight becomes easier to bear. So for me to listen to the heartache of someone else is helpful to both of us, because they also have called to talk to me about my own difficulties, and whether one seems harder than another, this one is mine and this is theirs, and we hold them together, and it's so powerful. And I've seen that in my own life with my I got some incredible cousins, and I'm obviously so grateful for my siblings, who walk with me through this, and of course my kids. Oh, I mean, and at first I didn't want to share anything, because I didn't want to put that burden on them, that here we go again. We celebrated, and I think I'd even mentioned on here, I don't mean to spike the ball in the end zone, but it looks like the cancer is gone and I'm cancer free. Well, it's not so, not quite yet. There's much to learn, much to grow in, and I still have a good prognosis, but I realize there's no off-ramp for this. And I think many of you can relate to that. It's not like you can, win the game, it's over, and everything will be hunky-dory from then on. This is a journey that, if we stay on it, though we can't control it, we can experience depths of life within our circumstances that we wouldn't have otherwise. So let me also just say right now, it sucks. And so do a lot of things in your life. If I were to say, oh, it's easy, no, many times it's hard. But it's doable only when I can admit that it's not doable on my own strength. And it really came to me the other day when I can't remember if I was talking to my sister. I haven't had a sip of my coffee yet while I've been talking, so let me pause a little bit, and you do the same, all right? Because this is what this is about, right? Coffee is about the socializing, and I hope that you are you can enjoy this moment. And what's cool is you can get up, walk away. I'll never know it. Go grab your coffee, listen from the background, or what, right? So anyway, I digress. So I was talking, I think, to my sister, and I, as we were talking, all of a sudden I got an image, and I remembered that I thought I remembered one of the few things about my dad was that he would make pancakes for us. That was kind of a thing he did. And that he would pick me up and set me on the kitchen counter, like one of these, and the stove was right nearby, and he's making pancakes. I could sit and watch. And the only reason I remember is because he used to freak me out that I might fall off the edge. And yet at the same time, I wanted to be up there and see what was going on, because when you're little, it's frustrating to not be able to see over the top on what's going on up there, And I remember that's one of the few memories that I have. After my dad died, and I was 4 or 5 years old, I remember my brother, who's quite a bit older than me. Oh, I'm sorry, but you are 10 years older than me. And my brother would set me up on the counter, and I'd watch him make pancakes. He carried on that tradition. He still does that with his kids, and they're growing. I'm sure he's making pancakes at home oftentimes. But it was a comforting thing. And I realized one of the comforting things about it is that I wasn't making the pancakes. I was watching the pancakes being made. And it was really comforting to me to realize, let God do his work. Let spirit do its work. We draw from the energy of the world. We draw from all of this energy. I was watching Mandalorian. Have you seen that? Mandalorian's pretty interesting. And one of the things they said about the Jedis is that the Jedi grabs all of its force, all of its energy from all of the universe around, from everything is around. It draws from that, and that's where it gets its power. Perhaps that's what it means when it says, I can do all things through Christ, Christ the liberator, Christ that which was here before even us. That is the essence of life in all things. It's not I who lives, but Christ who lives in me. I can do all things through Christ. All of the recreative energy that is in the world and all things. I can't do all these things on my own. I was never expected to. But I can draw that energy from that which is around me. Now, there's times when I lose that perspective, and it can happen in a flash. Isn't it the same with you? It can seem like you read a little something in a book, or you do a meditation or a practice, or you've talked to your therapist or your spiritual director or whatever, and you have it for a second, and like a fleeting moment, it drifts away. Yeah, I have those moments. But I can call myself back into that. I begin to recognize that the anxiety I feel does nothing but occupy. I'm going to pull up the notes I wanted to share today. Let's see if I can close this one and open the other one. There we go. So the idea that anxiety occupies so much space and robs us of so much energy. That's all anxiety does. Anxiety takes up space. Why? Because I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. I want to think that I can have what I don't. I want to think that I can control what I can't control. And the suffering that I cannot do that preoccupies my mind. And it takes the space of whatever feelings want to enter into us and tell us that are there. See, we're afraid that if I feel, I might lose control. When in reality, I'm losing control because I'm not paying attention to the feeling. And as I allow that feeling to be there and I watch it like a boat floating by instead of it being part of my being, my identity, and I witness that feeling that I'm experiencing, it will float by and float away. But if I don't let it in, it is the energy that it's bringing that I'm trying to resist with my own anxiety. And I'm able to stop and realize that anxiety is occupying way too much space. See, we have inhibitors that prevent us from experiencing that momentous freedom in that moment. Now, even in my practices, it doesn't always work, we might say, but I might go to the tasks that I can control, put a little music on and do those tasks, even though my body says, we don't want to do that. We want to sit and dwell. Yeah. And we begin to move and have our being. And it's not as if everything is changing. I'm changing in the process. I'm changing in the process. So we have a thought. We think sometimes we want to improve what's going on. We could make it better. Even in the good things. I remember going to San Diego one time and I took a little trip by myself, and I've always been around people all the time. You know, I was a young dad, had my kids, married a couple times, girlfriends, and made sure that I was never alone. And I took this little trip to San Diego and I was really, really down. I was going through some rough times quite a few years ago. And when I went, it was such an amazing time in San Diego, but I felt like it could have been so much better if I was sharing it with the person I was no longer with, and I couldn't call her. It wasn't a good idea. It could be so much better if I had one of my family members, my kids with me. It would be so much better. And that's one of the things that becomes an inhibitor. When we think we could improve on what is in our head, when we think we could improve. You see, the garden in that beautiful story of the Garden of Eden, or bad story, however you want to look at it, Adam had everything. And just so you know, I never mentioned Eve because we got to blame Adam for everything. It's better that way. All right. So y'all can talk Eve if you want, but the bottom line is I can relate to the guy in the story screwing things up. So Adam has everything at his hands. In the garden, he has everything that he needs. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is that idea that he can either prevent bad or he could make it better. By knowing he could make it better, though the garden had everything he needed. See, we have everything we need in this universe, in this life, to be able to work through these things. But in our good times, it could be so much better. Go back to the game analogy. Yeah, we scored a touchdown. We could get it. We could run them out, the opponent out of the arena, out of the stadium. We won the game. We could win the conference. We win the conference. We could do so much better. We always want to improve on that. Great for sports, bad for this life. All right. And so instead of experiencing the garden, Adam tasted a little bit of the power, and a little bit of that power that things could be better. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, another touchdown, another win, a championship, a better relationship. If we think we could improve on it a little bit better, it will always lead to intoxication. Josh, my son, and I always laugh. I think he's the one who started it, because he would say, "You're drunk on." Or you're drunk on, so I want a little bit more. You're drunk. You're drunk on good coffee. You are drunk on, it's like, you've taken more in excess of everything. And it's funny at the time. Trust me, I just can't think of a good thing to share in relation to that. That would go, oh yeah, I identify. Just trust me. But we become intoxicated with power. We become intoxicated with that experience. We want more. We desire more. And that will lead to an inability to judge soberly, when I cannot just taste and see that what is present is truly good. I want to share with you this little quote about letting go of anxiety, letting go of and being a part of that which is greater than ourselves. Dad making the pancakes. I'm watching. Dad's making the pancakes. And this is what Thomas More says in his book, Original Self. Living in the moment can become a moralistic principle, a burden rather than a way to intensify life. The difference might depend on who takes the lead in the dance and who chooses the music. The soul is a community of interior persons many of them capable leaders. The ego is only one among them and probably should not always run the show. A good dancer or musician allows the music to take over because absorbed in the complex harmonies and tempos and is the servant of the materials at hand. The secret of a soul-based life is to allow someone or something other than the usual self to be in charge. Reminds me of that Friends episode where Joey helps the janitor of the building learn how to ballroom dance, and he's just a partner. And the more he awkwardly lets that guy practice by leading, all of a sudden Joey is loving what he thought he would hate, dancing with this guy in the basement or the roof of the apartment complex, and then when he's done with it and it's all over, he misses it, and Monica says, "I'll dance with you, Joey," and Joey suddenly says, I don't know how to lead." What a great thing for us to learn. I think it would be really good if we learned how not to lead because we were following Spirit so well. We were staying with things so well that when it came time for us to lead, we didn't know how to lead because we're used to following. And if we follow the right direction, the right path, chances are we will lead in the areas where we have influence. You know, Anthony DeMello, in one of the little books that my friend Johnny V shared with me, and I'm so grateful he did years ago, because if any of you struggle in those things that control you, if you've struggled at all in a relationship and you're perplexed by how difficult that relationship is, I would encourage you to read this little book. Carry it with you in your pocket or your purse. It's called The Way to Love by Anthony DeMello. Such a profound little book that changed in so many ways different parts of my life. Here's what Anthony DeMello says. And here is something else to ponder on. Each time you are anxious and afraid, it is because you may lose or fail to get the object of your attachment, isn't it? And each time you feel jealous, isn't it because someone may make off with what you are attached to? And almost all your anger comes from someone standing in the way of your attachment, doesn't it? And see how paranoid you become when your attachment is threatened? You cannot think objectively. Your whole vision becomes distorted, doesn't it? And every time you feel bored, isn't it because you are not getting a sufficient supply of what you believe will make you happy, of what you are attached to? And when you are depressed and miserable, the cause is there for all to see. Life is not giving you what you have convinced yourself you cannot be or be happy without. Almost every negative emotion you experience is the direct outcome of an attachment. And that's from Anthony DeMello's book, The Way to Love. And, we don't necessarily learn those things if you are a Christian, you don't tend to hear that side of storytelling. Storytelling is one of the most powerful, it's the most powerful thing we have to share with somebody else about our journey. But it's also within ourselves in that storytelling. But with those stories come meanings that are attached. And sometimes we have to detach the meaning from the story. And to be able to see that story and tell that story, we have to ask ourselves if we're living a storyline that is just repeating the same types of anxious moments within our head. And if that's the case, then we have to drop that storyline as an attachment. We drop the perspective we had on it. You see, we're not, when we feel like we are trapped in our circumstances or in our past and we can do nothing about it, what we're really attached to is the meanings that we've attached to the stories, not the stories themselves. And we can do something about the meanings. That's the beautiful thing. We can do something about the meanings. That's what EMDR is about. So oftentimes spiritual direction is about when I work with my spiritual directees or when I'm working with my own spiritual director. I'm exploring the meanings that have become attached, glued to those experiences of my past. And they want to tell me and inform me where it has become an anxious attachment. And when I can see the meaning for what it is, then I can ask Papa, Abba, Dad, Father, Spirit, Mother, whatever that greater than yourself is named. It's all one Spirit. And I can say why and what. And how do you do that? God, tell me what's going to happen. What do I need to be prepared for? How am I ought to live? Maybe the doctor doesn't know enough. Maybe I should get a second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh opinion. And maybe that's when God just kind of picks us up and sets us up on the counter and says, watch me make the pancakes. And I got so much comfort when I had heard that. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Makes sense? Trust in him and he will lead you down the path. I sometimes think that we are forced into that place without going willingly. And sometimes we find that is a great place to revert to, is trust. Remember, the Jedi gets its energy from all that is around and possessed. When we share in each other's sufferings, we share the burden of our sufferings. I can carry your heartache. You can carry my cancer. We can carry that struggling mom or dad with their child. We need more of that in our culture today. We need more of that sharing. We can even share the pain and suffering of what we thought was an enemy, an opposition, and sit on the same side. I hope you have a great time today embracing the Super Bowl. And maybe just 1 second as you're watching, notice the rise and fall of the emotions of fans, of announcers, of different things, and just chuckle as we think about the idea that we're just waiting for the next play, the next score, the next touchdown. All right. Love you. Bye-bye. I'm not going to leave that easy because my computer is so, this is the awkward part. When I go back to and end the stream.